Your boss asks why you did it, and you lose before answering. You're standing in the doorway of an office you didn't plan to enter. The question sounds fair. It isn't. Every sentence you add after it hands him something he didn't have a second ago. In that room, power isn't about being right. It's about who spends and who collects. You talk. You spend. He listens. He collects. One king answered questions like that with 3 words. He used them for 50 years. Stay in that doorway a moment longer. The instant you explain your decision to someone with power over you, you've agreed that you owe him one. That's the real trap. The conversation stops being about whether you were right, as it becomes about whether your reasons hold up. And he's the one who decides that. Notice what just changed. You walked in with a decision. You walk out with a proposal. Longer answers feel safer. They're not. Every extra detail is a new door. A new thing to question. A new place to be wrong. Think about how many times you've explained yourself out of a position you already had. A Roman general did exactly that, in public, in front of an entire city. Caius Marcius Coriolanus was a war hero in ancient Rome, in the 5th century BC. He spent his years on the battlefield, far from the city itself. Most Romans had never met him. That was his advantage. They filled the silence with a legend. Then, he decided to run for consul. Tradition required a public speech, so he walked into the forum and opened his tunic. Dozens of scars, from 7 years of fighting for Rome. People wept. He had already won. He barely needed to speak. He spoke anyway. On election day he came back, surrounded by senators and wealthy patricians. This time his tone was arrogant. He talked about his battles like nobody else had fought them. He attacked his rivals. He made jokes only the rich men understood. The crowd finally listened and heard a soldier showing off instead of a legend. He lost the election. What he did next cost him the city. Weeks later, a shipment of grain reached Rome. The Senate was ready to hand it out for free. Coriolanus stood up and argued against it. Then he went further. He said the people's representatives should be removed and the city given to the rich alone. Rome exploded. The Senate gave in and voted for the grain, but the crowd wanted an apology. Say less from now on, they told him, and you can return to the army. He appeared one last time. He started calm. He didn't stay calm. He insulted them again, and they shouted him down. The tribunes sentenced him to be thrown from a cliff. The patricians managed to reduce it to exile for life. Rome celebrated in the streets, harder than for any foreign victory. He never lost a battle. He lost everything with a speech. The next time you feel the urge to set the record straight, remember what it bought him. Here's the uncomfortable part. Silence isn't free either. Stay quiet. Too long, and people stop reading you as dangerous. They read you as absent. A vague answer can be turned against you, because people fill it with whatever they already suspect. Silence works when someone already wants something from you. When they don't, it just makes you easy to skip. So the question isn't whether to speak, it's what your words are buying. One king turned that question into a system. At the court of Louis XIV, in Versailles, ministers spent whole nights preparing. They argued over which points to use, what hour to approach him, what expression to wear. Then they presented the case and waited. Louis listened in silence, with a face nobody could read. When they asked for his decision, he looked at them and said, "I shall see." Then he walked away. They never heard another word about it. Weeks later, they simply saw the result. As a young man, Louis had loved the sound of his own voice. The silence was learned. Nobody could tell him what he wanted to hear, because nobody knew what he wanted. And while they talked to fill the gap, they told him everything about themselves. Watch who talks more in your next hard conversation. That's the one losing it. So try this in something small. When someone with power asks you why, give them the decision and stop there. Let the pause sit. If they want more, they'll ask for it. And then you're answering a question instead of defending a case. answer once, then stop. Explaining yourself isn't defense. It's a quiet way of asking permission. Coriolanus thought his words were his defense. They were the only weapon his enemies ever needed. The line you're proudest of saying is usually the one they use against you later.